In the aftermath of the murder of Mary Nichols, which took place on August the 31st, 1888, the police were on the lookout for anyone who may potentially have seen the killer or who might be able to provide them with any information that might lead to the breakthrough that was so evidently eluding them in their hunt for the Whitechapel murderer. There also appears to have been a dramatic increase in public interest in the case, and people were coming forward to report any suspicious characters who they thought might be the man the police were looking for. Just seeming slightly odd, or even walking in a suspicious manner, could, as the following story illustrates, lead to people becoming suspicious of innocent pedestrians or passers-by. At around noon on Saturday the 8th of September, which also happened to be the day on which Annie Chapman was murdered, Thomas Eade, a signalman for the East London Railway, was passing Forrester's Music Hall, which used to stand here where this block of flats, Sovereign House, now stands, on Cambridge Heath Road. He had a peculiar appearance, as if he had a wooden arm. Eade later told the inquest into Mary Nichols' death, which was held at the Working Lads Institute on Whitechapel Road, when he appeared as a witness on Monday the 17th of September. I passed him once or twice, Eade continued, and as he put his hand in his pocket, I caught sight of the blade of a knife, which was up his sleeve. I saw about 4 inches of steel. It is illustrative of the different accounts that appeared in the press that several newspapers reported that the knife had in fact been in the man's trouser pocket. Describing the man, Eade observed that he was about 5 foot 8 inches tall, 35 years of age, and that he had the appearance of a mechanic. He had a dark moustache and whiskers, wore a dark brown jacket, white overalls, and had on a double-peaked cap. How did he walk? Quizzed the coroner, Edwin Baxter. As though he had got stiff knees. That was what made me notice him first, replied Eade. Were his overalls dirty? Asked Baxter. No, they were perfectly clean. 3 men were standing nearby, Eade went on, and he called upon them to assist him in apprehending the suspicious-looking character. One of the men said that he was willing to do so, but his 2 companions refused. At this point, the man saw that he had attracted Eade's attention, and he hurried away. Eade followed him, intending to give him into custody, but the man slipped down some street, causing Eade to lose sight of him. The coroner asked if he had seen what kind of knife the man was carrying, to which Eade replied that he hadn't got a good view of it, although he thought the blade was about 2.5 inches wide. Replying to a question from one of the jurors, Eade said that the man was not a muscular or stout man. It would appear that the authorities took Eade's story seriously, and the police set about tracing the man, which they had done by the final day of the inquest into Mary Nichols' death, which took place on Saturday the 22nd of September. As a consequence, Eade was recalled and was the only witness to appear that day, the rest of which was given over to Coroner Baxter's summing up and the jury's verdict. The Brighouse and Radstrick Gazette, in its edition of Saturday the 29th of September, published a brief synopsis of his testimony. The only further evidence taken was that of Thomas Eade, the signalman who had previously deposed to having seen a man carrying a knife near the scene of the murder. Eade now testified that since last giving evidence he had identified John James of Hackney as the man whom he had seen with the knife. The coroner observed that the man in question was a well-known harmless lunatic, of whose innocence there was no question, so that what the witness had seen was no clue to this crime. Interestingly, nobody seems to have questioned why John James had been carrying a concealed knife, or if they did, no reason was given at the inquest. Nor was it stated whether the knife had been confiscated from him, which would probably have been a wise course of action, as you can't help feeling that, no matter how harmless he might have been, the prospect of him wandering around Whitechapel with a concealed knife couldn't, by any stretch of the imagination, be described as an appealing one. Nonetheless, the coroner, having gone on the record to describe John James as a harmless lunatic who was innocent of any crime, proceeded with his summing up, And, like so many minor players in the saga, Thomas Eade went back to his everyday life to become little more than a footnote in a story that by the time it ended, if it could be said to have ever ended, would feature hundreds of similar characters who made brief appearances, added a little more to the plot, and then faded back into obscurity.